Hello to all students, part of education class 621 at Southwest State Marshall. It's great to be sharing with you guys today. My name is Kevin Gentz, and I'll be talking about subsumption theory, something which I knew none about before studying it in this past week. I learned a lot. Hopefully I can convey it to you in a meaningful way. Subsumption theory. We start by defining it. It's the theory of how information is subsumed. I didn't really know what subsume meant, so I looked it up. Subsume means to consider or include an idea, term, or proposition as part of a more comprehensive one. Where does it fit in the overall picture? Or to bring a case or instance under a specific rule, or to take up into a more inclusive classification. So if we could think about education and learning, how do we take different topics of learning and place them in a more comprehensive environment, something that students understand is a bigger picture, for example? Is there a certain rule or procedure that skills fall under that we need to know about? How are things classified inclusively with other topics of study or skills? In summary, subsumption theory could be suggested to be how new information is received and connected to previous knowledge. Previous knowledge is extremely important to this theory. What does the learner understand? What does the learner know? What has the learner been through that can help them understand this information and how it is processed and remembered? A man by the name of Dr. David Ausubel was concerned with the very best way to connect new information and learning to previous knowledge, and then place it in the appropriate context. Ultimately, Ausubel felt advanced organizers would assist in subsumption. So there's a word that is very familiar to a lot of educators, advanced organizers. That is a tool that Ausubel felt would help in subsumption process, that learners would ultimately achieve better and remember more and be better students if they were assisted with advanced organizers that would assist in this process. A little bit of information about Dr. David Ausubel. He lived from 1918 to 2008, was born in New York, made contributions to educational psychology. He was primarily interested in learning, the process of how people learn, and meaningful learning. In fact, he felt people should have meaningful learning, and this is often achieved through deductive reasoning. This is different from, say, rote memorization. He didn't feel that rote memorization was the best way for people to learn. Nor did he believe that it was best for people to learn through discovery, but that deductive reasoning was helpful, but that it should be meaningful. Namely, that it should connect to previous experiences, ideas. They should be able to categorize this learning in terms of what they already know. He did studies to show that advanced organizers do positively impact meaningful learning. What is subsumption theory and what it is not? Let's start what it probably isn't. If you're handing out class notes, that does not address the theory of subsumption. Nor does just providing a document that summarizes the unit. Nor does just a sheet of rules and formulas, or flashcards, or guided practice for discovery learning, or giving information to learn. These can be very useful tools, but they in themselves do not really address the critical theory of subsumption. If you contextualize a topic for a class before introducing it, that deals with the theory of subsumption. If you're asking students to tap into previous knowledge about a topic before introducing new learning, that deals with this theory. Or if you're framing a new learning to have meaning with what the learner already knows, or using a graphic organizer to tie previous knowledge and new learning together, those are things that deal with subsumption because they connect previous knowledge. Now, these might all be just wonderful tools or practices that we have and work out well, but they fall under a different category and used at a different time. As you can see here, important words: contextualizing something, asking students to tap into previous knowledge, framing something for learners with what they already know. Those are important pieces that help students be able to recognize where this topic of interest fits in with what they do know already. Furthermore, we have graphic organizers. That's a visual aid. We have the process of asking students. This process of think, pair, and share. Students, think of something that connects to World War II, share with a partner, and let's come back and brainstorm ideas together so that then you may introduce a new learning about World War II, how it fit into history. There are both visual ways of doing this and audible ways of doing this. Advanced organizers are not simply handing out documents, nor are they just a way of lecturing. In his book about educational psychology, Dr. Ausubel said something that I thought was very profound and really summarized his overall goal, which was the most important single factor influencing learning is what the learner already knows. Ascertain this and teach him accordingly. As educators, we know how important it is to understand what the learner already knows. He argued that once that's understood, if you can contextualize the new learning to what they know, they'll be more likely to remember it and have success with it as time goes on. I try to pull a few examples of advanced organizers. This is one that I found online. A teacher may use this as they're talking about different insects to help students understand what phylum these particular insects are a part of. And so as a teacher maybe asks them to brainstorm different insects, they may pull these insects specifically, looking at the difference of them to then classify them under this phylum. Arachnids are also classified under that phylum. So you can see that this is a nice advanced organizer, a nice visual aid to help students connect with maybe some species that they're familiar with. Let's see where they all fit together. As a lot of you guys know, I teach math, and for those of you who don't, I'm sure you've experienced this type of thinking before. But this is a document I've used in Algebra 2. It says it's a decision tree for finding all possible roots for a polynomial. I want to just mention that before we ever get to this skill, students learn how to factor in all these different ways. Students also learn how to use the quadratic formula. However, using the quadratic formula and even dividing a polynomial and factoring are all part of a bigger picture where we find all possible roots for a polynomial. So now, if I hand this out at the beginning of class, even though the students may not know how to use the rational roots theorem, they can start down this tree and realize that, hey, they can factor and they can use all these different ways, and that's where it fits in to this larger picture. But there are times where, no, a polynomial doesn't factor. They will have to use this rational roots theorem and say, oh, well, that's where that fits in. Factoring is one option. This is another. And, oh, I guess I get to divide a polynomial when that happens. Or, hey, I guess I get to use a quadratic formula. And this graphic organizer helps them to understand how their previous knowledge, such as factoring and the quadratic formula and dividing polynomials, fits in with a larger picture that we're trying to work with and try to develop a skill that will be useful to them later on down the line. I found that my students find this very helpful. If any math teachers out there want it, I'll send it your way. Here's another one that I use in trigonometry. Solving for oblique triangles and giving them a decision tree. When we're trying to solve triangles, all sides and all angles using laws of sines and cosines, I think everybody remembers in geometry that sometimes you're given 3 angles to a triangle, or 2 angles and a side, or angle, side, angle. This is the one that if you spell it backwards, spells a bad word, and that's what we tell students, so it kind of stands out. And you have these here. All of those have just one step for solving them. Just one direct method by which we would solve them or by which there might be no solution. But then we got this one that sticks out like a sore thumb. So when I teach this content right here, this is very confusing to students unless they know the right time to use it, which is right here. And they understand all the other 6 different classifications as well. They also see the tools that they have to use it, which is previous knowledge. And this will ultimately help them understand the entire unit altogether and see where, again, this very difficult piece where there are multiple situations that can exist, where you might have 2 solutions or no solutions or 1 solution. A very difficult scenario, where does that fit in with the rest of what they know how to do? Although they seem like good ideas, there are a lot of arguments against the use of advanced organizers. Namely, people feel that the definition for advanced organizers is vague. What are they? Are they visual? Are they audible? How are they used? For what people are they used? They argue that students come to the classroom with different experiences and knowledge, and advanced organizers are used as summaries and do not promote learning. Well, are advanced organizers summaries? In many ways, some of them are. And yes, students do come with different knowledge. So how do we respond to that? Well, Ausubel said that advanced organizers should be vaguely defined. If they weren't vaguely defined, they could not be used in a variety of ways, but would be very specified. And they should be used across curriculum for all subject matters. It can be useful in all types of learning. He also said that advanced organizers should be developed to connect the learning in a meaningful way to everyone. That this previous point about students having different knowledge and different experiences is okay. That part of what advanced organizers do is to connect learning meaningfully for everybody. And finally, advanced organizers are intended to be used during the learning process. They may be used later to assist with assessment. So for example, advanced organizers are not simply intended to be summaries as are often thought about. They are intended to be used during the learning process as the topic is first introduced. Might they be used later as an aid for an assessment? Yes, but that is not their primary purpose, nor what they were originally designed for. There is research out there. Dr. Ausubel carried out research and concluded that advanced organizers do assist in learning. However, studies have been carried out since then, and they suggest that they assist in learning, and other studies suggest that they do not assist in learning. There is contradictory research out there, and as educators, people are trying to work through the research and understand exactly the proper place. Right now, where we are at is more studies are being carried out that are attempting to determine how verbal advanced organizers and graphical advanced organizers affect learning independently of one another. It is thought primarily that graphical organizers, when developed for the right purpose, not simply as summaries, but to connect learning, does in fact have the greatest achievement. Verbal is much more difficult for researchers to be able to study and research, and it doesn't seem to have the same type of impact. But these are some examples of where research is headed and things that people have even done in their classroom to try to improve student achievement. Hopefully that was helpful to everybody. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully you learned something about subsumption theory. Have a great day.